Good afternoon. Here today with Colin Simpson from Worcester Bosch. My name is Michael McLaughlin. I'm digital lead at HACT, which stands for Housing Association Charitable Trust. We've been working with Vericon on our Launchpad service for the past probably about 18 months now, and supporting them to develop not only their product into the social housing sector, but their understanding of both the social housing and the supply chain, and some of that conversation and context, just to help them in a kind of co-production, but also so that they are providing the right service in the best way possible for both tenant and landlord. So as I say, I'm here with Colin. I just get Colin to briefly introduce yourself, and we'll really have a chat about the work you do, with Vericon, and the role that technology plays in some of that work, and in kind of better functioning the tenant landlord relationship.
Yeah, perfect. So firstly, yeah, thank you, Michael, for inviting me to come along and talk. So my name's Colin Simpson. I'm the product manager for Worcester Bosch. For those those of you that maybe don't know us, we are a boiler and heating and cooling manufacturer based in Worcester and Derbyshire. And our philosophy is very much about warming lives and protecting the environment. And my specific role is that of connected products and services.
Excellent, thank you very much, Colin. So I suppose the first question is really thinking on how is connected technology such as Vericon, and I know you guys will work with other providers, how does that improve both your ability and the sector's ability to better serve social housing organisation and their tenants?
Yeah, certainly. So we have many good relationships with social housing clients and local authorities, and I'd say probably about 2 to 3 years ago we started to get a lot of interest in connectivity from those clients, in particular how they could monitor the homes of their tenants to improve their efficiency. If something went wrong with that boiler, or there was a problem with the home, or indeed how they could look after the welfare of the tenant living in that property. And we have a range of solutions that could do that, but what we realized was that these associations really didn't want a connected solution from every heating manufacturer, every kind of player out there in the market. And for that reason, we decided to partner with Vericon, who are already very successful in that sector and can provide a range of solutions that really optimized for those social housing providers and local authorities.
Excellent. I suppose that thinking about that, or the next step to that, so and about that, as I referred to earlier on, the kind of ability to better serve tenants. So my assumption being that the work you do and the work you do with Vericon is really outward facing, is about how it benefits tenants more than it benefits the work of Worcester Bosch, for example. Yes,
certainly. So the solution that's provided with Vericon really enables the whole property to be monitored, and of course the benefit there for the tenant is that should something go wrong with the boiler, obviously the amount of time that tenant doesn't want to be without heating and hot water. So the real benefit there is that the system can detect if there is an issue, and enable the social housing customer, or indeed their maintenance provider, to then react quickly. So it's very much around, of course there is a potential benefit to the social housing client, because they're going to be able to react in a much more efficient way. But ultimately, this is all about ensuring that the tenant, doesn't go without heating and hot water. There are other elements to the system, such as being able to monitor the condition of that tenant's property in terms of temperature and humidity, and in particular mold. So yeah, we as an organisation, we actually don't get any of that data. We're not, we're very strict, being Bosch, in terms of our kind of responsibilities concerning GDPR. So none of that information is shared with us. It's really just recognising the needs of social housing clients and their tenants are making sure that, you know, we're in a strong position to be able to work with them to, you know, to provide them with those solutions.
That's interesting. I suppose the work that HACT do often is supporting housing organisations to be more data driven. So actually products like that massively help, but it's also great to know that there's an ability for products like that to segment the kind of level of access, so they can connect to your technology without that something that you guys need to, one, I suppose, be involved in, but two, you don't have sight over some of that, because I know some of the concerns that particularly tenants, more necessarily in housing associations, so by proxy, kind of really affects their decision making on that, is around some of that privacy, and you know, we know that picking up more and more data about tenants can tell us more and more, not just about performance of the technology, but the lives within that. So for example, if you're picking up in boiler usage, you can probably tell when someone's in a property or not. So I think that's a really interesting point on that.
Yeah, I agree. As I say, we're really strict on how we manage customer data, and in this instance, we don't have that data at all. And I think actually what you've hit upon there is perhaps one of the challenges to do with this technology within the industry. I think you know, it's quite clear to those social housing organisations the potential benefits, and you know, in almost every case, their heart is in the right place. It's very much about ensuring that there's heating and hot water for the tenant, and the condition of the homes that they're living in, you know, is very good. But it's how you then relay that message to those tenants and how you bring them on board. And I think what we've really seen from some of those that are doing it successfully is that they're really bringing the tenants into the culture of their organisation. And really being open and transparent about what they're doing with this information, and indeed how that will directly help the tenant living in that property.
That's really interesting. I think I focused a lot in the past couple of years on remote working and the kind of technology around some of that stuff, and how that enables us to have better or very different tenant engagement. And actually, it's good to know that you know, that's something that's kind of furthered on, and you know, through the supply chain of social housing, there's an acknowledgement of the importance of that tenant engagement, but actually the tenants' rights as part of that. So that's really interesting.
Precisely, and I think the point you make around working from home, I mean, it's unusual for me to be in the office today, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think in some respects, although, you know, very difficult times with the pandemic, I think it's also kind of made people realise that, you know, there is top technology out there to be able to help. You know, and you know, a very good example, you know, throughout the pandemic and lockdown was, you know, people didn't want anybody to come into their home unnecessarily. You know, and having this technology to be able to enable that, you know, social housing or their maintenance provider for them to be able to actually see if a visit is necessary, you know, in the first place, was, you know, an incredibly useful tool.
That probably touched on to my next point. I think it's that remote diagnostic, and one of the key business benefits of some of that performance monitoring is seeing where actually we know what part is required. We know that either yes, a fix is needed, or we need to reset something, and it, you know, I suppose ultimately reduces one, the amount of visits, but probably the amount of time you require to have a engineer on site. So therefore, you know, looking at both organisational efficiency, but almost, you know, that kind of carbon footprint as well.
Yeah, very much so. And this is where the Vericon kind of product offering stands apart from anything else within the market, because their boiler control module, their gateway that connects to the boiler, and indeed the other sensors that they've got within the property, temperature, humidity, etc. It's agnostic, and by that I mean that it's not just compatible with one manufacturer's boiler, it's compatible with up to, you know, around 80% of the appliances. So, you know, it's not just a benefit, it's not just a direct benefit for certain appliances, it's a direct benefit for all. And as you say, that's a real advantage to those maintenance providers who are probably supporting various different types of boilers from various different ages. If they know what the problem is, if indeed it is a problem with the boiler, of course, because as we know, a lot of the time it's not an issue with the boiler. Maybe it's just an education piece where the current tenant doesn't realise how to control the boiler or their room thermostat. Maybe it's something simple where pressure needs to be topped up within the boiler. So a very useful product and solution to increase efficiency.
And that highlights another area that I'd probably like to get a couple of thoughts from is about the ability of partnership working between social housing organisation, suppliers and tech providers. Actually gives a more holistic approach around some of that stuff, enabling both tech implementation, but actually operationally and how they use it and how they understand it to be done probably on a more longer term basis. So
yeah, indeed, and I think a partnership like ours, between Worcester Bosch and Vericon can only be a good thing. There's only good to come from it, and for us, it really enables us to ensure that the right product is made available to those customers that need it, and it also enables us to really learn a lot and work closely with those tenants, with those clients, to understand their specific needs. And of course, a big advantage of our partnership is that if there's a specific feature that those customers want delivered as part of the Vericon product, then we're in we've got a perfect strong relationship there to react quickly, and to make those changes in a very quick and efficient way.
So I noticed that you're putting the kind of tenants and clients very central to your thoughts on this, and for me, I think I'm always surprised at the current level of uptake of IoT. I think there was some studies in Inside Housing last year, and it showed the areas in which social housing organisations would like to have connected technology or considering it an actual implementation, and there is quite a disparity in that. And for me, I think the main area I've seen is organisations not being able to build that business case or that business benefit of doing so. And I think actually it's interesting, you're talking a lot about the clients and the tenants. And for me, it's not necessarily just about those organisational efficiencies. It's about the tenant outcomes that it improves. And often where we see tech implementation done best in the sector is where organisations have said, this is the outcomes we want to improve. So we want to improve efficiency of boilers, but actually we want to improve tenants' health, because we know that you referred to the damp and mould and the kind of PR that social housing has had of late, and the importance of to people's health, preventative spend, people's well-being, the kind of anxiety of having fit for purpose heating properties understood, and having that good landlord relationship. There's a whole range of outcomes on that. Actually, if you focus on that and say what technology suits that, and start from that rather than saying, wow, new shiny IoT, let's get it, what does it do? We're not sure, but we should have it because everyone else does. So actually having that tenant central to that decision making really could make a difference.
I agree, and I think there's strong cases, I should say, for both sides. There is a strong business case in terms of return on investment, just simply looking at the numbers and the payback. But then there's the other side, and the more important side, which, as you say, is about tenant welfare and really looking after the tenants and supporting them. And I think what I've seen over the past 2 years is there's definitely more and more organisations are starting to think in that way, which is brilliant. And we're seeing more and more of this technology starting to be adapted. And I think that's where we as an organisation have been there to really bring those people together within those organisations, because of course we're not just talking to the gas managers, we're talking to the maintenance providers, we're talking to the people that have been tasked to consider connected innovations within their organisations, and there's a big willingness there and a desire to implement this technology. I think that the challenge for those organisations is that some of them are quite large, and it does come down to money, and sometimes it comes down to, well, whose budget is it? Which department is this? An IT project? Is this an asset project? And I think those really are the challenges, and we're already starting to find means and ways to facilitate and help those organisations. But definitely, there's still some challenges there. But we're kind of working together with Vericon and those customers to really to bring down those walls, as it were.
I think to take that point a bit further, I think what's interesting in that is that taking down those walls within housing associations or social housing landlords is an interesting thought as well. Actually, connecting some of those internal conversations between, that could be the sustainability team, asset team, repairs team, IT or procurement, to say, yes, we've built a business case with the return on investment because we need to send less people out to check on the water because we've got a sensor on that, or we can measure the energy efficiency of that build, so we don't need to survey. But that may benefit other parts of the business, that they're also looking at that same kind of data set. And I think the work that we've been working with Vericon, but more widely in the sector, is about aligning some of that language so that when you're talking to IT departments, they understand the benefits for other areas of their business. So I think it's a great point. We beat ourselves up often how we work with the sector and trying to ensure that the supply chains align, but actually we need to make sure kind of enterprise-wide we're aligned as well within an organisation. So I think it's an interesting point to make.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would almost summarise it that with the technology is there. The technology is there to really to increase efficiency and increase tenant well-being. And it's certainly it's certainly there when we talk about Vericon's products and solutions. I think what we need to get better at as an industry is really how to talk about it, as you say, common terminology, and just get a consistent understanding within those organisations, and almost a template to how to integrate that technology within their industry. And I'm confident, we've already got some success stories under our belts, and I think it's about sharing that best practice within the industry as a whole, and so everyone can ultimately benefit from it.
Well, that's another kind of salient point, and these series of kind of interviews we've been having around the kind of connected technology. One of the other areas we spoke about was about that kind of business case and speaking the same language. So I think it's really kind of interesting on that one, and I think it's something that we would say in terms of the business case. Having a better understanding of how that data is going to be used, how it potentially could be used, and if we use the same types of kind of standardized data, standardized understanding. So I think looking at predictive analytics, so if you pull big full data sets and use the data from the IoT, you'll be able to tell potentially the likelihood of a boiler failing because of other elements around that, and that could be some of the ideal situation for mold and damp, but it might also be around a boiler failing in a type of property and the type of installation, the kind of more challenging areas and stuff, and particularly geographies that use heating very differently, thinking about particularly some of the housing associations I work with in Scotland and rural Scotland. It's a very different approach to heating properties required all year round. So I think that if we all approach that kind of predictive analytics and use the data from IoT, it really does help that. I suppose the last thing, just keen to get your view on, I suppose in a wider sense, just about the future of technology in both the area in which you work with Worcester Bosch, but kind of housing more generally. Just thinking about what will you guys be focusing on when you're looking at kind of procuring or implementing new technologies?
I think I would I would say that certainly connectivity is going to continue to grow, and the expectation of connectivity and the benefits it will continue to grow. I guess the most obvious answer to that question is, well, let's not forget, we're talking a lot about boilers here, but there's a lot of going on within government legislation, to improve the efficiency of our heating systems, that will ultimately dictate whether it's a boiler of the future, whether a fossil fuel boiler, whether it's indeed a hydrogen burning boiler, whether it's a heat pump, whether it's a hybrid, or whether more likely it's just a mixture of all of those things. And I think as an industry, to be able to monitor a boiler, there's still lots of what I'd class as low-hanging fruit, as I've described, being able to go out to that boiler and fix it, know what parts to take, know indeed if it is a problem. But, as an industry, boilers have been around for a number of years, and, there are lots of, there's quite a high competence level out there. Of course, as we move to a future with, burning different fuels and heat pumps and hybrids, the competence is currently lower within the heating industry. And I think for us, that's where remote monitoring and connectivity becomes even more important, that we can kind of utilize the benefits of it. So, yeah, very much a diverse future of different heating technologies, that we are concentrating our efforts on, and that we see becoming in the future available.
Excellent, Colin. Well, thank you very much. We'll watch on with interest to see how your partnership with Vericon and throughout social housing develops. And again, thank you very much for your time. It's been really insightful.
Yep, thank you, Michael. Really appreciate your time, and a really interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.